Have you ever wanted to forge your own epic weapon using ZBrush? Do you need a guide that gives you step-by-step instruction on how to sculpt a battle-ready axe from scratch? Well, this tutorial is for you. Hi creators, welcome back to Academic Phoenix Plus. My name is Monica and I am your guide through ZBrush. In this video tutorial, we are going to go over how to create an axe using ZBrush. We're going to go over many tools including masking, extracting, pushing, pulling, and so much more. If you're new to this channel, I provide weekly tutorials. Software includes Maya, ZBrush, Substance Painter, and so much more. So if that is your sort of thing, please consider subscribing. So bring out that creativity, open up that software, and let's go ahead and get started in creating an axe from scratch using ZBrush.
And what we're going to be using today is called the thick plane. So up here at the light box, open that up, and we're going to choose thick plane. And basically, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a plane, a very simple plane. Now, one of the things I want to do is use reference. It's really important that you guys find reference so that we can make it accurate. How do we bring in a reference? ZBrush sees any type of reference as a texture. So up here at the top, we have something called texture, and we're going to click on import, and I am going to import it. Here it is. Delete. So now if I go to texture, you'll see that there is a texture here of the axe. The next thing I need to do is look for what's something called draw. So up here at the top, we have a variety of tools. And you'll notice that up here, all the way over here to the right, we have tool. And when I do tool, you'll notice the bar on the right disappears. This is known as a tool. The tool is right here as well. They shoved it in this corner, this side here, because you use this a lot. So I can actually drag some of these out into the same place. That's what I'm going to do with draw. So with draw, there's a tiny little weird icon here that looks like a circle with an arrow sticking out of it. If you grab that and drag it into this bar, it will show up here. Now, draw is still there, right? So under draw, we have a bunch of stuff. And one of them, all the way at the bottom, we see something that's called front, back, up, down, left, right. And if I click on front, back, you'll notice that we have map 1 and 2. So when I click on map 1, I'm going to click on my axe and bring it in. And there it is. Now, I'm not a fan of modeling sideways or diagonal. So lucky for us, we can manipulate this so that it fits a little bit better in our scene. So one of them is horizon offset. So we can go and move this left to right. One is a vertical offset, which, does that. And of course, one's an angle. So I'm going to kind of bring this like that. Now I can click on flip, which will flip the image and rotate again. There we go. And then get to I kind of want to, I don't know why, I have my mindset with the axe on the left side. We also have scale. So I do want to make it bigger so that it fits my plane a little bit better. And again, I just have to kind of manipulate this so that it fits into my scene. Now, before I start modeling, and I'm actually going to scale this a little bit bigger because again, I'm just going to be focusing on the blade. There is other things that we can focus on, and one of them is the opacity. So you can see that with the enhanced opacity, I can actually reduce the opacity of my axe so it's not so strong. So I can make it vanish a little bit. So it doesn't have to be so solid because I'm going to be using this as the guidance to my mask. All right, cool. So that should do it. You'll notice that I have symmetry on. That's the default. Let's click on the letter X, which is the shortcut. I'm going to bring up the size of my brush. I'm going to hold down Control. And this is the opportunity where you get to draw. So let me go ahead and start creating my mask. Now, you'll notice that the quality of my mask, and if I turn off the floor, you'll see that it's really pixelated. It is not very pretty. That's because we need to divide. So right now, as you can see, and this is hilarious, right now it's at 2,000 points, right? That is not enough. So I'm going to divide this a couple of times. So now I'm at 9,000, now I'm at 38,000, and I'm going to go 154, and I'm going to go to 619, and I'm going to stop right there. And the reality is that the chances of me going back to a lower division is really small. So what's going on here is that you'll notice that there's a bar. And this bar basically means that you can actually go to a lower division all the way up to the beginning, which is 1 division. There's basically almost like 5 models here. This is the highest subdivision model, which is model number 5. And then the 1, as you can see, is very low. That's kind of like model number 1. So I don't need ZBrush to keep all this information. So I'm going to tell it to delete the lower. So what that means is that it's going to delete the lower subdivision. So let me turn this off and turn it back on. And boy, did that get really dense. But we basically have a higher density square, which is good because I'm going to need that because I need to actually mask this out. So let me turn that off, right? So now my quality of my mask is a lot nicer. All right, going back, floor. Okay, so you're going to go in and you're going to hold down Control and we're going to start masking this out. So again, this is just kind of like the base. I'm just going to start with something pretty simple. And maybe you have the perfect mind eye to do this, but reference is really important when it comes to designing your stuff. So again, you can turn off the floor and I'm just holding down Alt to kind of make sure everything gets nice and filled. It's not perfect, but it's giving me the right idea, and I can bring the floor back up and then I can start removing things. So hold down Control, hold down Alt. That gives me a negative mask and I can start kind of removing some of the things. Whoops, that's too far. If you want to get a less soft edge, I would probably recommend that you hold down Control Alt and reduce your focal edge so you can get a sharper edge as well. So now I'm getting a bit of a sharper edge. I am using a tablet, which is helpful. Again, you can bring back the floor, maybe make the mask a little bit smaller so you can get a little bit better detail, something like that. All right, I'm still holding down Control, click on Alt, and then start subtracting. The next part's going to be to make this a little sharper. Control, Alt, click will make it sharper. Click again. And you can use the masking here to, sharpen. In general, this will give me a sharp edge. These little flaws might make it look like it's seen better days. So that's what I'm thinking. I can get away with that. Okay. All right. So now we have this selection and we want to go and use the extract. So this is under subtool. And here's my extract, and I can click on extract and see how far it goes. And you can see that it's not very thick, right? And also note that it does extract on the left side and the right side. So I'm going to go in here and maybe change this to 0.07, extract. And I like the size of that as well. I'm going to click on double, click extract, click accept, and it's together. Let's take a look at the polygon count, and it looks really high. But the reality is that it's high on the front, but not so high on the side. So what are we going to do? You're going to be using Dynamesh. So I'm going to demask by Control, click, and drag. And let's go to Dynamesh. So it's down here. Again, I'd like the resolution to be pretty high, so around 360, something like that. Again, you can type it in 360, and then click on Dynamesh. If we take a look at it again, you're going to see that it's fairly evenly distributed and the mesh is looking a lot better. Now we can actually start working on our mesh. So first thing first, I'm probably going to clean it up the edges a little bit due to the front to happen to the back. So in transform, I'm going to activate my symmetry, but X is not what I want. I probably want is not Y. I always get this wrong. Z. There we go. I'm going to use the smooth tool. I'm going to click on BST, which is the standard brush. And I'm just going to hold down Shift and just kind of smooth the edges just a little bit. I'm not a big fan of these sharp edges. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of smooth it out by holding down Shift and just kind of smoothing out these edges. Not too much. Just something really simple. Press F if you start losing your model. And again, I'm just hitting Shift and just smoothing out those edges. Might change my silhouette just a little bit, but it should not do too much of a difference. Next, I need to make it look like a blade. Right now, it looks like if I said it was a piece of steak, I'd believe it. So I want to make this look more like a blade. So to do that, I am going to hold down my mask tool and just go ahead and just kind of grab a portion of the mask. I'm going to pick up larger draw set by holding out space bar and bringing this up. And again, I'm just drawing where the blade is going to be. If you hold on Control Alt, you can subtract. So if you feel like you grab too much, you can always just paint it out. Hold on, Control Shift, click, click, click to make it sharp. Looks really good. And then I'm going to inverse it. So click Control and just click out in infinity, click, and that will inverse the mask. I definitely want to add those in there. So let me make sure that I remove that. Here we go. And just kind of look around to make sure you don't screw up like I just did. So it's not really a bad screw up. It's just make sure that everything looks even on all angles. So it's important to always, always, always look at what's going on. All right. So we now have this part selected. We've talked a little bit about high polish versus trim dynamic. So high polish keeps the edge, trim dynamic does not. So I'm going for the trim dynamic. Again, hit spacebar to make your draw size bigger, or just go up here to the top. And what you want to do is just start pressing this inward. Now it is going to preserve that edge here because it's masked. So what that does is that it's basically crushing the edges together to create a blade. Now you have to be careful. You don't want to accidentally select here because that will actually crush the inside. You're just trying to select the edges from the outside and then push it in. So just be careful. Again, this is very similar to sculpting. You're just kind of going in and using the tools that you have and just being very careful. Once you feel like you have a pretty good edge, we can go ahead and grab the high polish and that will preserve it. So now I can kind of go in without too much fear and start sharpening that edge. So you can see that it doesn't destroy the edge, it actually tries to preserve the edge. And finally, there is what's called a pinch tool, which we really haven't talked about too much, but we will today, which is, where to go? Well, you can always click on the letter P and it's going to show up. Here's the pinch tool. This will actually pinch your geometry closer together. So if you're really trying to get that nice sharp edge, this is the tool for you. So again, you want to use the trim dynamic to get the concept. The high polish is for getting it closer and making it look cleaner. And then this will give you the nice edge that you're looking for because this will pinch the edges together. All right, let's see what that looks like so far. You can see that I've got the nice clean edge right here. All right, so let's talk about shading. Right now, the shading is white, and I'm not a fan of this. It's using a skin material. Do not ask me why it's using the skin material as a default for this particular project. But what we can do is actually change it. This wax actually is the ZBrush default for everything or in the past, but it's very stylized in my opinion and a little distracting. So I'm actually very comfortable with using what's called matte cap gray. And that looks more like Maya, which is the default gray. It just kind of helps you see the details a little bit better. All right, so now that we have this basic axe, that's just the blade, let's go ahead and start talking about bringing in a handle. All right, so to bring in any other piece of geometry, it's called append. We're going to click on append, and in here we only have only a limited things that we can use to append something. And one of them is, obviously, we're going to be using is a cylinder. So let's bring in the cylinder. And what we can do is make sure that we have it selected. Dink. And we can press W, which is the move tool, and start bringing this in. So we have a scale right here, which I can stretch. If you hold on Alt, you can actually click on this one to just make it skinnier. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I can get a little bit more of that axe. Again, I'm going to make it longer, go back to draw mode. All right, so let's take a look at this. You'll notice that this cylinder is very low. It currently has 112 points. So what we're going to do is go to geometry and we're going to divide it a couple of times. So that's dividing once, dividing twice, and now I'm at 119. And I'm probably going to divide it one more time. 143. Okay, so now I can start manipulating a little bit more. So you can see that it kind of pushes a little bit to the right, then it pushes more to the left, and it kind of goes back. So I'm going to be using the move tool. So grab the move tool. Let's make it bigger. And I'm going to grab this and kind of nudge it. Now make sure that your transform is active. As you can see, it's not. So what that happens is that it may move one, but in this case, it moved the whole thing. But you probably want to make sure that the transform is on. And I believe a Z is the correct one. Yeah. So if I move this, it moves the whole thing. So again, let's turn the floor back on. So I'm going to push this back out a little bit this way, just a little bit, just kind of nudge things around. Just kind of nudge, just nothing major. Maybe push this back a little bit. Nothing too extreme. Now we have a little bit more of that shape. And because it's a little bit wiggly, it's okay because it's organic. It is made out of wood and it's human made. So that's something to also consider. So again, you can be as precise as you want, but I'm right now just trying to get a basic shape. Okay. Let's add details to the bottom here, which is actually pretty cool looking. By the way, you'll notice that if I turn off floor, it goes away. I can turn on perspective and makes it flat. So I don't have to keep scrubbing back here. I can actually just use this. There's a couple of ways we could do this. We can actually grab the damn standard and reduce the size, and we can draw this on our own, right? You'll notice that I don't really have that much geometry to work with, so I'm not getting that high of a quality. So this is a good opportunity for me to just go ahead and Dynamesh. So again, here's Dynamesh. I'm going to increase my resolution to about 360. I'm going to click on Dynamesh. So the quality is going to be a lot higher. And I can go in and use the damn standard. I know it's a weird name. And just kind of start adding those details. Now, another method that we can do is actually masking this out. So what I can do is mask these details out by holding on Alt, click and drag. We can reverse the selection by doing Control and click out in infinity. And we can use deformation. So for example, we can use inflate negative balloon. We can use positive balloon, whichever you like. I'm going to go for the negative. And I'm actually going to undo that and just make my selections a little smaller. So these are pretty, pretty small. So again, I'm just going to hold down Control and just kind of click here. Just tiny little details, but I think a really nice texture to this object. Good enough. Reverse it and then inflate to the negative. There you go. So very quickly we can get some details. To add this element here, I mean, that's a pretty easy design. We can just hold on the mask. We can go ahead and create the mask. Fill it in, get rid of the floor, get a big brush, and just paint it in. Make sure you grab everything, including the top and the front. We can reverse it. This time I'm going to just inflate it, and that will give us the design. We also have these little nubs, right? So what I'm going to use is the standard brush, and I believe we have some circles here. So that's what I'm going to use as an alpha. So we have an alpha 6. I'm going to use a drag rectangle, and I'm just going to create these tiny little things. So again, let me turn off the floor just so I can see what I'm doing. And I can click and drag. I don't think that's strong enough, so I'm going to reduce my focal shift. I'm going to increase my intensity, and I'm going to create these little buttons, or whatever they are. I don't know if they're buttons. All right, so we're starting to get an X. What about the texture of the wood? Right? Like I would like to add some texture on the wood. Well, we have a variety of things that we can use. So one of them is an alpha, and we can actually use that to kind of, scratch it. So right now my intensity is extremely strong, so I'm going to reduce it. So we can use this kind of scratching alpha to kind of give us an idea of what looks like wood. So that's one idea. But we can also bring in our own wood. In the Pixelogic website, I believe that they have a tree effect in here, or a tree texture. There is. So we have a couple of wood that we can actually use. So for example, you could try this one, download, or you can make your own. You can always just download it. I'm going to copy this. I need to make myself an alpha brush. Alpha. Just place it in here. Makes my life easier. So just like what we did before, we are going to go up here to the top, choose alpha, import, grab it, and it's going to be in here. So it's already selected. So again, if you grab here, the alpha has been imported, and now we can add our own alpha. So we can just kind of click and drag, and we can start creating a texture. Now, I would prefer to actually have this masked out, and this is where it would have been a good idea to actually create polygroups, but I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it. So just gonna click and drag. So the nice thing is that you'll notice that I don't have that many polygons, but I have enough polygons to give me the details that I need. So keep that in mind. I'm going to add some down here too. All right, so we are starting to get the feel that this is a wood handle. I still need to add more detail to the axe and a couple of other things, but in general, this is starting to come together and relatively looking like our reference image. We've done a couple of things in this exercise. We've used a plane, used a mask, and extracted it to create an axe, and then we used a high polish, pinch, and a couple other things to kind of get that blade. We also appended the axe handle, then we extruded using the inflate so that we could kind of get this pattern. We also did some designing here, and then we added wood to give it that wood texture. So we are bringing this axe along. All right, I wanted to focus more on this particular section here. Now in this reference image, it's all one gigantic metallic piece. I'm actually going to design it several pieces. So let's bring in another piece. Just like what we did before, I am going to append, and this time I'm going to grab a cube. And again, it's going to make this massive cube. But if you take a look at the resolution, it's only 262. And if I click on this, make sure I have the cube selected, you'll see that it's basically pretty low mesh, and it's actually 112. So what I can do is just go ahead and divide it. But first, let me place it into the seam. Now, if you want to see everything, just go ahead and turn these on. Make sure you have the right one selected. I'm going to click on R, which brings up the gizmo, and we can just go ahead and start flattening it out and grabbing the one in the center. So the one in the center scales uniformly. So I'm going to place this in here. Something around there is good. We can divide, right? And I'm going to turn off that. And we're going to divide again and divide again. This looks pretty clean. Let's damage it a little bit. You might want to reset this, so you can just make sure that the alpha is off and you go back to dot, so that's the default. And then we can grab the turn dynamic. I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger and just kind of make it look a little bit less clean. Now I don't have my symmetry on, so I'm going to undo that. Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z again until it's nice and normal like it was. And then we're going to turn on symmetry, turn off X, and activate Z. So whatever happens on one side will happen on another, and that's exactly what I want. So I'm going to go in and just kind of help with the transition here between this blade and this axe, and just kind of use it also to kind of damage it a little bit. So the point of this is to kind of just make it look like, you know, this is a nice looking axe, but not that nice. It's scene adventure. So really quickly with this brush, we could get some really nice detail.
All right, I think that's a good place to stop. In the next video tutorial, we're going to be covering how to import a skull, how to add details to the blade, and also add the other missing pieces. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you learned a thing or two. If you did, please like and subscribe. That is your message to me, letting me know that you like this content and that you want to see more. And of course, it helps me out with YouTube. Please share my content. If you know of an artist out there that would like to learn how to make a weapon using ZBrush, please share my videos. That would be amazing and it would really help me out. Also, take a look at academicphoenixplus.com. There you can find free resources such as 3D models, ebooks, and so much more. So take a look at academicphoenixplus.com. Are you using my tutorials to create some cool art? Please tag me on social media. I would love to see your works. That's always really fun. Again, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Keep creating, and I will see you next time in the next video tutorial.